Some new stories from Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Somaliland. Somaliland, which claims to be a better democracy in the Horn of Africa. Here, a crackdown against journalists is being seen. Several journalists have been in prison for the past 2 days. Secondly, we have a new story about Eritrean refugees in Egypt. UN Security Council has released a statement about the plight of Eritrean refugees in Egypt. Thirdly, Baldiras party members and some Addis Ababa youth have been in prison for the last 40 days. Today, a court ordered their release. And lastly, a claim by government-backed news sources about ongoing military operation against Oromo Liberation Army across Oromia. Some government-backed news sources say that some TPLF members have been captured and OLA fighters as well in southern Oromia. We'll have a detailed look at this claim of government-backed news sources. Firstly, viewers, Somaliland, a self-declared country in the Horn of Africa, where a crackdown against journalists is being seen. More than 10 journalists have been in prison for the last 2 days. Why were they detained? They covered a prison scuffle which happened in Hargeisa, capital of Somaliland. Some of them broadcast live from the place of incident. After that, police launched a crackdown. Several journalists were arrested. Some were beaten as well by the security forces. We have seen pictures of injured journalists. Several journalists working for local and international news outlets were arrested. 2 ladies were also arrested. They have been released. Voice of America's reporter has been released, but more than 10 are still in prison. Government says that these journalists misinformed the people. A small incident happened in Hargeisa prison. They highlighted it out of proportion and they misinformed the public. Now we are seeing international journalist bodies making calls for the release of these journalists. Today we saw a statement from Abdurrahman, who is the presidential candidate of Wadani National Party. He condemned the arrest of Somaliland journalists. He is urging the government that it must release all imprisoned journalists. So, what happened in Ethiopia is being emulated in Somaliland, that journalists are being charged with misinforming people. Journalists sometimes do make mistakes. Question is, are the mistakes intentional or any agenda behind these mistakes? Secondly, what was the impact of the mistake? Did it lead to some law and order situation? So, the government should ensure that freedom of expression is not curbed. Somaliland praises itself for the freedom of expression, that it is a working democracy in the Horn of Africa, a beacon of hope for democracy in the Horn of Africa. What you're seeing, what's happening there, the government will have to release these journalists. International pressure will come, and Somaliland is in need of financial assistance after the fire in Hargeisa, which devastated a market, causing around $2 billion loss for Somaliland's economy. International bodies are urging the government to release these journalists. Secondly, because UN Security Council has released a statement about Eritrean refugees in Egypt who are being expelled by Egyptian authorities. In a previous video as well, I shared this development with you, that Egyptian authorities are involved in repatriating these refugees. In March, some refugees were expelled back to Eritrea. UN Security Council says that it is a violation of international law. Mass deportations of refugees is against international refugee law. So Egyptian authorities must stop this practice. Since October 2021, at least 68 Eritrean refugees were deported to Eritrea. And Abdul Salam Babakar, who is UN representative for Eritrea, says that most of the deported refugees were put in prison by Eritrean government. And according to Abdul Salam Babakar, the condition of deported Eritrean refugees is not clear. No one knows where they are, how they are being treated there. So that is why UN Security Council is sending a message to Egypt that it should not deport Eritrean refugees. Reportedly, in coming days, dozens of Eritrean refugees are due to be deported from Egypt to Eritrea. In previous videos, we spoke about the trend that Eritreans are fleeing the country for different reasons. People say that it's due to economic conditions, it's due to poverty. Some say it's due to the government, which is involved in conscriptions. Youth is forced to serve in military. There is no freedom of expression. So that is why youth wants to flee the country. Whatever the reasons are, Eritreans are leaving the country in large number. Though we have seen Ethiopians as well. Tens of thousands are being repatriated from Saudi Arabia these days. So yes, economic conditions play a part too. But apart from that, human rights situation is another main factor. If governments are involved in human rights abuses, if they are not willing to stand any dissent, then it happens that people, they want to flee to those places where at least they can speak, they can work freely, where they have some rights. Now, question, viewers, is will Egypt stop these mass deportations of Eritreans? These around 50 Eritrean refugees are due to be deported. Will Egypt stop? We'll try to update you in coming days. Thirdly, viewers, we have a new story about the arrests of dozens of Addis Ababa youth. Some of them were members of Baldira's party. They were arrested at the start of March last month after Adwa and Karamara celebrations in Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital. Police launched a crackdown. Dozens of Baldira's party members and other Addis Ababa youth were arrested. These arrested persons were accused of fanning ethnic tensions, that they wore clothes with Menelik pictures and they wore and used Ethiopian flag without star sign. We saw slogans against Addis Ababa mayor as well during Adwa celebrations. Somalis reacted against Karamara celebration. They have been opposing the celebrations. We know they have a different position about Karamara. So definitely it led to some tensions. Addis Ababa government then launched a crackdown. It arrested several Baldira's party members. Skandar Naga was also arrested. He was taken to a police station, but he was released. Now, after 41 days of imprisonment, today almost all these arrested persons were released. Women detainees were released, I think more than a week ago, the video on that. And today all male detainees were released. So Government has just sent a message to Baldira's party that it would not let law and order situation get out of control in Addis Ababa. Since the arrests of Baldira's party members, Kandarnaga has considerably curtailed his street activities. Before that, on daily basis, he was out on the street somewhere, but since the incident in which he was taken to a police station last month, now he is only appearing in interviews, he is issuing statements. I think Skandar Naga has realized he has changed his political activities. Now he is mostly restricting himself to issuing statements and giving interviews. Lastly, viewers, a new story from southern Oromia, which is basically a claim made by government-backed news sources. Last year, Oromo Liberation Army and TDF Deportation Fund signed an agreement. They decided to jointly launch armed and political struggle against Ethiopian government. They fought jointly in North Shoa Oromia special zone of Amhara region. When TDF was there, then TDF had to retreat all the way back into Tigray. And OLA entered Oromia, where it has been for years. Now, for the past 10 days, more than 10 days, a military operation against OLA has been underway. Government-backed news sources say that some TPLF members have been arrested from a place in southern Oromia. These TPLF members were arrested along with OLA fighters. And some Al-Shabaab fighters were also arrested, helping OLA and TPLF members. So government sources are saying basically that there is an alliance among Oromo Liberation Army, Tigray People Liberation Front and Al-Shabaab. OLA has long been accused of being backed by Al-Shabaab, though we have no reliable information to back this claim. It is being claimed that in southern Oromia, in Guji, government forces, Ethiopian National Defense Force and Oromia Special Force, they raided some hashish farms. Hashish is grown there. And from these farms, some OLA members were arrested, firstly. And secondly, 17 TPLF members were also arrested. And thirdly, some Al-Shabaab fighters, I think 7 Al-Shabaab fighters have been arrested from Guji. And some of these, some other TPLF members and OLA leaders, they managed to cross into Kenya from Guji. They could not be arrested. Now, so far, government-backed news sources have not shared any names. No pictures, videos have been shared. That is why it's difficult to confirm this claim. It's just a claim by now. Secondly, we know that government forces have been trying to man Ethiopia-Kenya border. I reported about some operations, cross-border operations by Ethiopian government forces in Kenya and on Ethiopia side of the border as well. So how is it possible that OLA fighters and others, they managed to cross into Kenya while government forces are deployed along border areas? I think if government is making such a big claim that TPLF is on the ground, TDF is on the ground in OLA, it should give some evidence as well. It should share names, pictures, videos of Tigray fighters who are there backing Oromo Liberation Army. It would be an important development if TPLF, TDF fighters are found supporting OLA in southern Oromia, any part of Oromia. So we are treating it as a claim. Let's see, will government share any evidence? So far, since the claim is being made by government-backed news sources, that is why we're sharing it with you. But we'll update you once we have more information available